For Plymouth's colonists, the cycle of life in America was marked by the same milestones as in Europe. Birth signaled hope. Death brought sorrow. And marriage heralded commitment. Marriage in Plymouth was not only a rite of passage, but also a unifying force helping to hold the colonists together.
Oh, good day, Father.
How are thyself and Nicholas faring?
Quite well, thank you, and yourself?
Stephen Hopkins and his daughter Constance were among the original passengers on the Mayflower in 1620. Their weddings were a decade and an ocean apart. They were nothing alike, a sign of the rift between Plymouth separatists and the Church of England they had left behind.
Farewell, Father.
Good day.
3 years before boarding the Mayflower, Stephen was a widower, facing the challenge of raising young Constance and her siblings. A new wife was not only what he and his children wanted, but needed.
Widowed men in the 1600s are remarrying quickly after the loss of a wife because they could not take care of children on their own. It was beyond them.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered together here in the sight of God.
Hopkins' second bride was Elizabeth Fisher.
We don't know what her motivation was for marrying him. It could be she married him just to be married. At this time, marriage is the seal of adulthood. If you remain a bachelor or a spinster, then you are considered less than an adult.
In England, marriage was a rite regulated by the church, but the minister held no sacred authority over the wedding ceremony.
The minister did not make the marriage. He was merely a witness and a recorder. It was the man and woman exchanging vows in the presence of their witnesses. They made the marriage themselves.
The same was true in Plymouth 10 years later, for Stephen's daughter Constance and her groom Nicholas. But a magistrate, not a minister, presided, and not in church, because here there were only civil marriages. Couples were wed not in the eyes of God, but only in the eyes of the law. Ironically, the reason was biblical.
The civil marriage ceremony in Plymouth appears secular, but it is the ultimate expression of their interpretation of the Bible. There are two biblical examples of marriage, one in the Hebrew Bible and one in the New Testament. And the Reformed Christians at Plymouth looked at those two examples and said, these are legal transactions. There is no justification for bringing the marriage ceremony under the administration of the church. In the book of Ruth, chapter 4, when Ruth marries Boaz, her things are moved to Boaz's tent. That is the marriage made between the two of them. It is witnessed by the Jewish elders, but they do not make the marriage. The other example is Christ at the wedding at Cana, where he turns water into wine, performing his first miracle. Reformed Christians would argue that had Christ intended marriage to come under the administration of the church, he would have performed that wedding, not simply have been there as a guest, turning water into wine.
The Anglican Church did not accept such biblical precedents, and not only supervised marriage, but also adorned it in the lyrical 17th century prose familiar to this day.
For better and for worse.
For better and for worse.
For richer and for poorer.
For richer, for poorer.
In sickness and in health.
In sickness and in health.
To love and to cherish.
To love and to cherish.
Till death us do part.
Till death us do part.
The Plymouth ceremony avoided all rhythmic rhetoric. Ornate language was deemed a distraction. All that mattered was clarity.
Do you, Constance, acknowledge and declare that by hand and mouth you have freely, and without constraint or persuasion, of any entered into engagements of espousal and marriage with Nicholas?
I so acknowledge and declare.
There just needs to be simple, clear language that both husband and wife understand every element of what they're doing. It is about the simple truth.
Thus before me, William Bradford, and these witnesses are married Constance and Nicholas Snow in New Plymouth on this day.
In Plymouth and in England, brides had one striking feature in common.
For both ceremonies, it is likely that the wedding will be the last time that the wife's hair will be down and revealed in public. After her wedding, she'll wear her hair up and covered whenever other people are around. Her hair will become her husband's private joy.
And the joys of marriage in Plymouth were many.
Their philosophy of marriage was that it was to be a true delight between a man and a woman, and that the marriage bed was not just for procreation, but for creating true intimacy.
For both Constance and her father, we know little of their marriages beyond that each endured for decades until the death of their spouses. Stephen and Elizabeth are believed to be interred at Plymouth's Burial Hill, their wooden grave markers long since gone. Our only clue about the state of their union is contained in Stephen's will.
In his will, he asked to be buried as close to her as conveniently possible. The fact that he never remarried, the fact that he asked to be buried as close as possible to her, these are marks of true affection.
Marriage in Plymouth did more than bond husband and wife. It united their families and created social networks that even death could not sever. Only through unity could Plymouth survive, and every wedding was a new opportunity to bring the colony closer together.